Welcome to Visionaries Global Media, your number one source for podcasting entertainment. Visionaries Global Media, envisioning excellence on a global scale.
This is Band From Ringside.
Tonight's on the Band From Ringside podcast, Brian Danielson and Hangman Page go full Broadway at Winter is Coming. KO gets his bag. Sami Zayn and Brock Lesnar are the new buddy cop comedy coming to a theater near you. That and a whole bunch more tonight on the Band From Ringside podcast. Theater near you.
Theater near you.
Yes, thank you very much. Ditch that 9 to 5. It's time to feel alive. Hello, Marks, and welcome to the Band From Ringside podcast. As always, I'm your host, Bill Vagey, a.k.a. Smooth Choperator. Smooth Choperator. And sitting directly to my left, we have Jason Cornelius Bell. What's going on, JCB?
It's Thursday. You know what time that is. How's the Bower Heads? I read from the latest edition of the Band From Ringside podcast, volume 235, chapter 3, verse 14, and the good smart saith, BOOTHEHEHEELS. Booty heels, baby. It's all good, baby. Listen, share, subscribe, repeat. The Holy Trinity of BFR. I know I had an amazing time watching a fucking hour-long match. Other people had a problem with this match. It blows my mind how people are so divided about watching creative art, but we'll get into that. We'll get into KO staying at home in the WWE. I'm a little surprised about that. I want to hear this guy's thoughts about it because I know that's your boy. But yeah, interested in a week of wrestling.
Thoughts.
I know you do.
out there in Portland, Oregon, we have Two Beer Zach Bowman.
BFR West in the house.
What's going on, Two Beer Zach?
Today's episode is brought to you by the letter P, and P is for polarizing.
This motherfucker.
I wasn't sure where we was going.
I didn't either. I should have introduced him as Portland Trailblazer #1 fan.
Right?
Zach Bowman. We're coming at you
When
from.
they offer you those sweet boxes, you just gotta go.
Yeah, you can't.
I was about to say, Damian Lillard? Is that his name?
Plus, you're taking your boy there, man. That's good stuff. That's good stuff.
I know you just did not correct me about what Damian Lillard's name is.
Hey, he's the super fan, not you, man.
I say, where'd he go to college, Mr. Superfan?
We're coming at you from Chile.
Oh, he went to college?
All right, we're coming at you from St. Charles. I mean, I was going to do the whole thing. Hey, I said this to these guys on the thread, and I want to say it to the listeners that I was out last week, and I can't tell you how much I hate missing the podcast. So if I'm out, trust me, I have something going on or I'm sick. And last week, I don't get sick very often. I was sick, did not have COVID. But I did lose my voice, which is something that you kind of need if you're going to host a podcast. So,
you could have came on, you just took a lot of breath from my ass.
Just done a bunch of nods, just nodded at you a bunch.
I'll say Bill's agreeing with me again. Unbelievable.
But I listened to the podcast last week, almost the whole thing. You guys did a great job. You did a great job holding it down.
Hey, we didn't wreck the Ferrari. It's all good.
No, you did not. So, without further ado, let's get into that 3 count.
1, 2, 3.
JCB, kick it off.
I'm going to let Two Beer do his usual A-dub stick, so we'll talk about what I kind of think is a little more important because it's more big picture than anything else, but obviously we're going to talk A-dub in a second. KO re-signing with the WWE, I think, is kind of just as important, maybe a little so more important if we're talking about big picture. I guess this came out yesterday. Sean Ross Sapp was the first reporter from Fightful.com. That's where I saw it, and other people's tagged me on that. So apparently KO does resign. I'm not sure for how long or the money. I've heard somewhere in the area of $2 to $3 million, which is a nice little bag for KO. I'm sure that is a nice bump up to where he was, but obviously the speculation.
3 years.
Okay, 3 years, $2 to $3 million.
Decides to fire him.
Okay, yeah, I was going to say that's always the running issue with WWE.
I mean, what would he do to get fired by Vince? Like headbutt him in the middle of the ring and draw blood?
Say, check that box. Check that box. So there is some value to Kevin Owens. I really thought that if he and Sammy both left, it would kind of leave a void in certain aspects, not just necessarily in the ring, but more so promo-wise, character-wise. Obviously, we're going to talk about Sammy and Brock here in a little bit, but more so just to stick to KO. I'm not sure if he worked us as fans or used AEW as leverage, but this is the reason ultimately, and Two Beer retweeted somebody else's tweet about this. This is ultimately what is good about having AEW around, because now not only is there competition, but now there's going to be competition for talent, and that talent is going to get that bag, and that ultimately what I'm here for. Don't get me wrong, I love to see hour-long matches that go into draws, and we can debate that all day long, but ultimately I like to see that talent get paid. Kevin Owens' stand doesn't bother me. If he left to go to AEW, I've said for multiple weeks upon a time that sooner or later we're going to get to a point where this roster is bloated and you just can't get everybody over. This is probably what was best for him, his family. He was probably comfortable in WWE, not knowing what, Kyle O'Reilly was a surprise not being there, but apparently Brody King is coming. So, I mean, AEW is always, it feels like it's going to be a revolving door of talent where if he just stayed in the WWE, there's maybe 3 people that I would put above Kevin Owens in the hierarchy of WWE in no order: Roman Reigns, Big E, Drew McIntyre. And that's about it. From that point, you need to start talking about Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens' status is going to be solid for the next 3 years. He's going to get paid big bucks.
There's a couple more I'd put above. Like, you didn't mention Brock Lesnar. You didn't mention Seth Rollins.
Okay, well, Brock Lesnar to me is part-time.
Okay.
And,
Right. Yeah, okay.
I'm talking about active full-time wrestling.
But I also wouldn't
Seth Rollins,
I also wouldn't put Big E above him.
He's a champion. He's basically everywhere at this point. He's a recognizable face.
Sure. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
the reason why I put Big E in it. Roman for obvious reasons.
Certainly a conversation
to have it for another time. But ultimately, you kind of get my point. He has a very solid place in WWE. If he moved to AEW, he can put you a part of Mount Rushmore. He can be, the whatever it is. Somebody said the Undisputed Elite. Shout out to Michael Wallace Seals for that thought. Yeah, you can be all of that, or he can be a standalone top star in WWE. I would almost rather him go the WWE route and be alone, get your bag, and hopefully you can have some sort of creative license to where you go for the next 3 years.
Two Beer Zach, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, good for him, man. He's making that money. Like, there's no way he'd be making anywhere close to $2-3 million a year without AEW to use as leverage. So, I mean, that just makes sense. I mean, he puts out a tweet about the Mount Rushmore coordinates. He says Mount Rushmore in a promo. And, I mean, that's just smart business. Like, and even still, the dude is not making near what he's worth compared to the company. Like they just don't pay their talent enough. UFC doesn't pay enough. Nobody in combat sports or professional wrestling really pays enough as far as a ratio to their profits. So good for him, man. I mean, like, would I want him to see him in AEW with the talent that he has and given full creative control and all that? Absolutely. But at the same time, like, he's got a body of work with those guys too that you can go back and relive if you want to, and good for him. I mean, dude's got a hot wife, he's got a beautiful family, he's a fucking multi-millionaire, and if they cut him in a year, guess what? He still got that $2 million.
Yeah, I mean, it's no secret that Kevin Owens is my dude. He's one of my 3 favorite current pro wrestlers. This is what he's been working for his entire life. I mean, how many fucking, VFW halls and high school gyms did Kevin Owens wrestle? I'm sure bangers in,
Plenty, I'm sure.
Lots of ROH ladder matches where he wasn't getting paid what he probably was putting out, And his whole goal was to go to WWE. He knew that was his goal the entire time. He was a Jericho guy. He's a Stone Cold Steve Austin guy. I love the anecdote about him meeting Steve Austin at the airport and Steve Austin telling him just never stop talking, and Kevin Owens has certainly never done that. That's what makes it one of my favorites.
Amen for that.
This is what he's been working for all of his life. And Zach retweeted somebody or quote tweeted somebody the other day, and I'm sorry that I don't have the guy's name right here, but it was a good point. Zach said this is a great take because when this entire era, whatever this era is going to be called, where it's AEW versus WWE, you know, Wednesday Night Wars, the Wars Part 2, whatever it's called, KO might be considered the first guy to really use that leverage, stay with WWE, and get fucking paid. God bless him.
MJF
Good for him.
talking that same shit now, too. So you can kind of see the landscape is changing before our eyes.
And nobody deserves it more than him. There are probably guys that deserve it just as much as him, but there's nobody that deserves it more than him.
No, it was time for him to get paid.
And, you know, I saw a lot of pro KO stuff. Most of my timeline was pro KO. Like, hey, go ahead and get your money. I'll stop bitching about the way you're booked because you've decided to be there. And, man, it's probably, you know, what is he, 36, 37 years old? It's probably safer for him in the long run to wrestle at WWE, which is a safer style. You know, they certainly have their ways are set in stone pretty much.
You know, God bless. Kevin Owens isn't necessarily taking that safe way out. He's taking some of the nastier bumps in most matches that we see in this Fatal 4-Way that's coming up here on, you know, January 1st, day one.
You can take the Roger school out of the boy, but you can't take the boy out of the Roger school. Or I might have said that backwards, but you guys know what I mean. He is wasn't he trained by Jacques Rougeau?
Sounds right, yeah.
I'm sure somebody will correct me.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, that's the way he wrestles.
Oh, no question about it. Like I said, for me, I really didn't want him to go at AEW because at this point, like I said, to me, they need to close the borders and just worry about what you got at this point.
But you remember that old thing, sorry to cut you off, but you remember that old thing where that was kind of the story in ROH where Jim Cornette said that Kevin Owens didn't look like a main eventer.
Yeah.
Kevin Owens looks like a main eventer in WWE now because he is a main eventer in WWE now. And I couldn't be happier for him. He obviously did what he wanted to do. He got his money. Fucking right on KO.
No doubt. I was going to say.
Fight Owens, fight, man.
At this point, you know, there's people out there that, you know, that might not have jobs or just struggling to make ends meet. KO did what was best for him, and it has nothing to do with me. As long as he keeps bringing me entertaining matches and make me giggle every now and then, I'm okay with him staying.
Plus, would he have? I'm of the opinion that AEW's roster is not necessarily bloated because I think that they do a really good job of juggling everybody. You know, like Jungle Boy wasn't on the show last night. It's okay if guys
totally
aren't.
Okay.
It's okay if guys aren't on the show every single week as long as they're not gone for too long.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Be able to keep them relevant in this big roster that you got.
Two Beer, do you think there's anything larger that we haven't addressed? And I'm putting you on the spot here. Do you think there's anything larger that we haven't addressed that this speaks to in terms of the AEW WWE moment that's happening right now?
No, I mean, I think it's a perfect little microcosm of things to come on both sides. I mean, there's going to be guys that AEW is going to have to shell out money for if they want to keep, and they have to make that decision. And it's a little bit tougher for them because even though, you know, Tony is a billionaire, they don't want to run, you know, in the red as a company. They're in the red, you know, for video game stuff and whatnot, but like, you know, they want it to be a profitable business. So it's not just his like little plaything where he's dumping a bunch of personal money into it. So, you know, they're going to have tough decisions to make. MJF's one of them. MJF's getting paid in 2024.
Oh,
and
shit.
good for him.
I mean, I can hear the Brinks truck backing up now as we speak.
Man,
exactly. But other than that, yeah, it's good. It's good for everybody.
MJF's like one of the few dudes where I'm like, I think I'd kind of like to see him in WWE, right? No, you don't. No, maybe not.
The heat that he brings on promos, and that's his big thing. That's his calling card. Don't get me wrong, he can wrestle, but once again, even before that, the main event, I mean, his promo before the main event was just like, what the fuck? Holy shit.
Vince would probably
Jesus.
call him like Munchkin James.
Right.
Munchkin James.
I'll say
Whatever his name is.
No. No Munchkin James Freeman. No. We don't want to
Right.
see that, okay? Let this man be MJF. And I just don't think that ultimately he would be a watered down version of what he is in AEW. And that's what I want to see. This MJF is fucking perfect. Leave it alone.
And I know that people were excited for the Mount Rushmore reunion.
I didn't see it, so I mean, I can't speak for Two Beer, but I mean, I can only imagine. You could always go back and watch, but like I said, for me, if I saw it, maybe I would have more of a personal investment to it. But like I said, KO is probably better off the more and more I talk about it, because this is really the first time I've even talked about it.
I mean,
Also, it's a 3-year contract. Like, do you think that nobody's going to want him in 3 years?
That too. I was going to
You know what
say AEW would probably still be around in 3 years. So if he really wanted to go, he's got the best of both worlds set up. You can really take advantage, hopefully get the 3 years, get your 3 years of the bag, and then if he wants to leave at that point, he can leave.
you know,
They're doing a great job with a 62-year-old Sting. Like, a 39-year-old Kevin Owens is fine.
right. And the other thing about his health, because I hear people talk about his health and stuff too. Something my grandpa used to say about baseball players getting hurt all the time in the 90s. My grandpa passed away in like 2008, but he talked about baseball up until the day he died. And he always used to be like, these guys get hurt all the time because in the off season, all they do is lift weights. He's like, back in the old days, in the off season, they used to drink beer and eat bacon. He's like, it's harder to get hurt. It's harder to get hurt if you're not so taught, you know. And obviously, KO enjoys a cheeseburger every now and again. So
me both.
Dude, like, Bailey's been out with a torn ACL doing box jumps. You guys remember whenever WWE told everybody they didn't know how to wrestle and they had to go do conditioning training and stuff, and their like number one female star at the time tore her ACL and was out for almost a year because they made her do box jumps. Like, are you fucking kidding me?
no, I don't. Who was that?
Bailey, she's still gone.
Oh, I got you. No, I get what you're saying. I
She
think
didn't get hurt in the ring. She got hurt because she was working out because they made them all work out.
she was doing
They said, "Go have a
plyometrics.
PC."
That's what Coach Stiegel did to me. That's why I'm not in the big leagues right now, or at least a Hall of Famer.
I was about to say, let's go find that motherfucker, man. He just cost you like at least $10 to $20 million.
Coach Stiegel, that motherfucker.
I was about to say, I got some angst I got built up.
I did the.
You look like a baseball player. You'd have like a really good baseball card.
Thank you very much.
Give him the old Expos hat. We in business,
The
baby.
other thing, I did the math the other day, and Pat Stiegel was 31 when he was my baseball coach. I thought he was old as fuck, man. He is 11 full years younger. If I went back in time and I saw a 31-year-old Pat Stiegel at the bar, I'd pet him on the head like a lap dog. You fucking little bitch. You're 31. You don't know shit.
Get this check and leave me the hell alone.
All right. That being said, anything else about KO?
No, we're good.
Let's get to that 2 count.
1, 2, 3.
2 beer. What's the 2 count?
2 count. We had AEW Winter is Coming, and I'll do my annual joke every year. Winter was not the only thing that was coming last night because there was a lot of good shit on this show. But the thing that everybody's talking about is, of course, the 1-hour Broadway for the AEW World Championship between Adam Page and Bryan Danielson. So, I mean, I loved it. I knew it was going long when it started because of the way that they were working it. I mean, this thing was worked like a New Japan main event on free American television, or not free, but cable, like, you didn't know pay-per-view. And they went an hour. The match was absolutely fantastic. One of the best matches I've ever seen on regular TV. A total classic, completely historic because it's the first draw they've done for the AEW title. It's the first 60-minute draw that they've done in the company. It's the longest match they've done in the company. So much, going on here as far as like history making television. And also, besides all of that, just fantastic professional wrestling. I mean, so many people on Twitter, not a ton, most people enjoyed this match, and because most people are wrestling fans. Like, if you didn't like this match, like, I saw Jason tweet something similar, like, we don't watch wrestling for the same reasons at all, and I don't understand you even a little bit. The word of the day, polarizing draws are polarizing. The fans boo draws. Like, that's just a thing that happens in live draws. People don't like, they want to finish. But what this does is it perpetuates the story. It doesn't make Hangman Page or Bryan Danielson look weak. I think that's the dumbest argument I've ever seen. Hangman Page had the thing won. If they would have had, that's the story. If they would have had 5 more seconds, Hangman would have went over to Bryan Danielson, covered him, 1, 2, 3. He had done his finishing move. He had done the Deadeye. He had kicked out of the Deadeye. Then he did the buckshot lariat. This thing was going. The tide had been turning, and he was going to win the match. That's the story. The story is not Hangman's a weak champion. The story is not Bryan Danielson is weak because he keeps having these matches with the world champion, who in storyline, in kayfabe, is the greatest professional wrestler alive. He keeps having these matches and he can't get it done. Now, the story is he keeps having these matches and he's taking the best wrestler on the planet to the limit every time. I just don't get it. I thought the commercials cuts were done really well. Obviously, it would have been better with no commercials, but that's why we have pay-per-view, and that's why I'll be shelling out $50 to watch this fucking match the next time.
That's why we're lucky they put it on television. I mean,
yeah. I mean, Jesus Christ, like, what is there to complain about? Like, I don't know. You guys can give your thoughts, but, I mean, this, to me, was one of the best professional wrestling matches in the history of, like, North American television. So, what are you complaining about? It fucking ruled.
JCB.
I think, and I agree with you on this. I don't have a problem with the finish. Like you said, this was a New Japan style type of match, and you can kind of see it unfolding as we went along. So obviously, with it kind of mirroring NJPW, I wouldn't have had a problem with it. I think a lot of people have just wanted to see a winner. You know what I'm saying? Either Page wins or Bryan Danielson wins. And I think that's the biggest problem with some fans that are complaining about this. Me personally, like I said, I don't have a problem with the draw. Okada Omega 2 is one of my favorite fucking matches, and that was a 60-minute draw. That was a banger-ass match, and I would put this match in that same vein. I'm not saying it's better. I'm not saying, we can compare that at a later point if you want to. But ultimately, I don't have a problem with the finish. It was more for me about making Hangman Page feel like a credible champion. Could you do that with a win? Of course you could have. But now you kind of hurt Bryan Danielson in that aspect too. Losing to the champion ain't always a bad thing, but if you lose to the champion, you're going to go back down the ladder a little bit. You want to keep Bryan Danielson as strong as humanly possible. In the same vein, you want to make Hangman Page look as strong as humanly possible the first title defense. It was a very, very tight rope to walk. I think this was the best way to do it. You gave us an instant classic. You set up a later match for whenever you want to do it down the line. To me, like I said, it was all about Omega getting himself over. He being Bryan Danielson couldn't beat Kenny Omega in 30 minutes. Damn sure couldn't beat Hangman in twice the time. I don't see what the problem is. Like I said, for me personally, I think a lot of people are just looking for a winner. And that's the biggest beef that I see with a lot of people's complaints, whether it had been a distraction finish or whatever the case may be, roll up, whatever. They were looking for a winner. I don't want to see a little cheap WWE distraction finish or roll up. I see that every fucking week, 2 or 3 times a week. That's not what I came here to see. If you're looking for WWE and AEW, you're probably watching the wrong shit, because it's literally 2 different ways to wrestle. They did it the AEW way. I have no problem with that, and I'm waiting for the next rematch to come around.
I have a lot of thoughts on this match, and especially piggybacking off of what you guys said. I don't disagree with anything you said. The first one being, people are like, well, if they use the time limit thing as a part of the story, we're talking about fucking Brian Danielson. Do you don't think that Brian Danielson is going to be able to use this as part of a story? Do you don't think that AEW is going to use this as part of a story that Daniel Bryan couldn't finish off Kenny Omega or Adam Page? And I don't know if they're leading to a triple threat or whatever. We don't know how long Omega's out. That's one. It's like, of course they're going to use this as part of a story. Of course this is good. They've proven, and we have to trust them at this point until they show us that we can't trust them. We have to trust them to be able to tell long-term storytelling, which I think they're going to be able to do. The second one being, yes, crowds do not like draws. Of course they don't. I'll tell you what, though.
This crowd was hot.
That crowd was hot, and every single person there is probably going to be able to, they're going to be able to say that they were at the 60-minute draw between Brian Danielson and Adam Page. They might have been disappointed in the moment, but it ultimately doesn't matter because we're all watching it for long-term storytelling. Of course they're going to not like it in the moment, just like crowds don't like it when heels win in the moment. That's what wrestling is supposed to. It's supposed to elicit a reaction. And AEW has done a good enough job at giving fans what they want that they're allowed to do this.
Yeah.
You know?
I agree with more what you said. It's more we're giving them the latitude to tell the story versus WWE. If it was WWE, it would be like, okay, what the fuck is this? This is the same bullshit, blah blah blah, and that's not the case. The case to me in this scenario is they did it the way they were supposed to do it, the way that AEW does their business. It's the first draw. It'd be different if it was like, it's the 16th draw this week. Or they do it all the time. They don't do it,
It is Brian Danielson's second draw, which is
first 60-minute draw.
As I was watching it, as I was doing shit around the house, and I was like, well, I can't do shit around the house. I got to watch this. And I was like, it's going to be 30 minutes. And then it was like, no, I was like, I was completely into it. I was glued to my seat. I loved it, right?
Once it got to like 40, 45 minutes, I was like, this shit's going to be a draw.
Well, you also have to do it every now and then to establish that it can't happen, and you want to establish a 60-minute draw on television.
Agreed.
Not after you paid $50.
100%.
That would piss me off. That's what the reason why
I saw Zach say that on Twitter. Also, it's like if it's done on television, it's better that they do it on television. Then you pay money to see it because then the reaction would have been a lot worse. Yes,
that's the reason why that barbed wire death match got a lot of fucking heat because motherfuckers had to actually shell out money for that shit. Now you got it in my pocket. Now I'm really pissed. Disappointment is one thing. People should be able to handle disappointment. That's just life. Being pissed off, most people can't handle being pissed off.
Yeah, some people can't handle disappointment, though, either.
This is true, too.
The other thing that I'll say about the stories going forward is that there are a couple stories going forward that they could use. The first one being, Hangman, you heard that there was 1 minute left. You heard there was 5 minutes left. Dude, don't go for the second buckshot lariat. Try to pin him after the first kayfabe style, right? Kayfabe style. The second one being kayfabe style is that Brian Danielson needs to not do so much fucking around because he was healing it up and
totally it was so fucking
I mean
good.
He was doing jumping jacks, he was
stone cold middle fingers.
Yeah, he was doing all sorts of stuff. And so that's the thing that I ultimately wanted to say, which is while I was watching this match, I couldn't stop thinking about how much of a genius Brian Danielson is.
Dude.
Like the dude that crowd, they had the crowd in the palm of their hand for 60 fucking minutes, man. And there's not a whole lot of wrestlers out there that can do shit like that. Brian Danielson is one of the only ones for 60 minutes. There's also another story that could go coming out of this is that And I thought the announcers were fucking perfect. I had it on real loud. I was listening. I was paying attention. I was so impressed with Excalibur. It would have been cool to have JR there. I was so impressed with Tony Schiavone and Taz that they were telling the story perfectly. They were like, how many times has Hangman Page had an hour match? Daniel Bryan could do it. They were like, look at Daniel Bryan's card. I know I keep calling Daniel Bryan. Sorry. But it's like, look at his cardio. Look how in good a shape he is. He's barely even breathing hard.
Dude, he skinned the cat like 58 minutes in.
Yes, he did. And I thought that was going to be the end, because I thought when he skinned the cat that Hangman Page was just going to destroy him after he came back in. But I thought the announcers did such a great job telling the story. That's another story, is that Hangman Page going against this guy that everybody knows is better than him, certainly historically better than him, certainly all-time better than him, that Hangman Page not only weathered the storm while Daniel Bryan kept sticking his head out of the ropes for like the first 15 minutes.
Dude's so good. He is so good as a fucking heel.
He's
so good.
He's the best. He's the best. He's better than Omega, if you ask me. I mean,
really?
Yeah, I mean, he is.
I was thinking about that. I was saying, and I've said it for a while, and you can jump in here after I'm done.
That is one. I mean, there's not very much difference between the two in terms of quality, but for my money, Bryan Danielson as a heel just gets it, dude.
Apples and oranges.
And as a babyface.
No, apples and oranges. I don't have a problem with that. And I've said it for weeks coming up, because the beefers are obviously sneaking up slowly but surely, which we have to set a date for at some point. I know I've said that there's really 3 guys that are in the conversation for Wrestler of the Year.
Yeah, Bryan Danielson
might be a 4th.
Headlined WrestleMania this year.
Yeah, I know. That's the crazy part about it.
This year.
It's literally like he's had 2 different wrestling lives in 1 year. The WWE wrestling life, where it basically ends up with him being stacked on the top of Edge.
Started off the year as a heel, ended up as a babyface in WWE.
And now came over to AEW as a babyface, and now they flipped into a heel. This motherfucker.
And it doesn't feel like Big Show either.
No,
it feels completely natural.
It feels right, because obviously it makes fucking sense. And that's why I say about WWE all the time. When they want to do it, they'll do it, and they'll do it right. 9 times out of 10, they just don't want to do it.
Zach.
Yeah, no, you hit it on the head. As far as the digression of Kenny, Daniel Bryan, I think they're both great, slightly different ways. But Daniel Bryan is a complete wrestler. He is a total ring general. He's incredibly smart, and he's also fantastic on the microphone. Whereas like Kenny has gotten a lot better, and I thought he was a fantastic douchey heel champion. But Bryan Danielson's just kind of next level in everything that he does. Kenny's just more explosive and more dynamic in the ring, and just much more like athletic, even though Danielson's athletic as well.
Oh, that's what I was getting ready to say, man. It just sounds like, and to each his own, it just sounds like to me you're just saying that Bryan Danielson is just the better wrestler overall. You know, in ring, promo, the whole shebang.
Yeah, I mean, I think you know, you can make that.
There's
argument.
nothing wrong with saying it. I mean, he's good.
Yeah.
You know, there is a legitimate argument just on 2021 alone wrestling year that you can make a legitimate argument and say that Bryan Danielson is a better wrestler than Kenny Omega.
Yeah, and he's just getting started. You know,
could Bryan Danielson have had that 4-match run healthy with Okada in New Japan? Of course. Could Kenny Omega have had a WWE run, let's just say in the last 2 years since he came back healthy, Bryan Danielson, as Danielson? Probably.
I don't think there's a probably to it. I think we all know the answer. The answer is yes. Now the question is, you know, if we're playing the subjective game, you know, who's the better wrestler? I don't necessarily agree or disagree with what Tubier said. I mean, in ring, you could easily make this a push because they're 2 different guys, but they do 2 different things so great. You know, Bryan Danielson is, you know, like the ultimate submission guy next to ZSJ, and Omega is like this hybrid athlete that could do multiple different things in and out of the ring. I mean, you're not safe in the ring because he could do, crazy
He'll do
shit.
anything.
Yeah, and he can come outside of the ring, over the top, with the Terminator move, the whole shebang. I couldn't make a really significant call, but I kind of lean towards Bryan Danielson. I just like Kenny Omega so much, and I'm a mark like that. I'll be the first to admit it. But on the same aspect, like I said, I wouldn't have any problems with somebody else saying, especially.
That was a great question for a dinosaur.
Don't ask. It wasn't my fault, just for the record. Like I said, I wouldn't have a problem with anybody else saying that Bryan Danielson is the better wrestler. Omega is who he is, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Just the biggest weakness in his game is if you give him the mic, he doesn't captivate the way Bryan Danielson can captivate. And that, to me, is the biggest difference between the two.
Yeah, overall, I mean, just great television, and like I'll just reiterate, it's okay to have a different opinion, but not all opinions are good. So,
yeah, I don't.
The rest of the match. Go ahead.
I don't want to give too much oxygen to the haters out there, and by the haters, I'm not talking about friend of BFR Mark Ortolan, who just wasn't that into the match.
Really?
I mean, it didn't sound like he wasn't being.
I don't think he likes long matches.
He wasn't being completely negative. There are people. He wasn't being a smug Twitter guy.
I'm not even gonna open it. I can't even believe you guys opened that door.
For different reasons, but it's one thing to prefer shorter matches and stuff. I get that, but I think it's really cool whenever you have these big, long, epic, those New Japan style main events, these Stardom. Don't even watch Stardom if you don't like draws or epic matches.
Oh shit!
I mean, wrestling fans live so much in the moment that we sometimes forget. If I would have told you 2 years ago that AEW would deliver us a 60-minute draw on television with Daniel Bryan and Kenny Omega, or Daniel Bryan and Hangman Page, and it was going to be on free TV, and it would end up in a draw where Hangman Page had the belt, everybody would have been super fucking excited about it.
Without question, okay? But then, this is the problem with just society in general. It's never enough. We've gotten Omega and Danielson. Now we've gotten Danielson and Page. And people are still angry about both. I would have given my left arm 2 years ago to see this thing happen, and now we're watching this thing unfold. There is nothing in the world that is wrong with either match. I get it. People want to see a winner, and that's perfectly fine. But at the end of the day, let's just say, for the sake of argument, Kenny Omega never comes back, and that storyline doesn't go anywhere. You now have this brand new, fresh-ass storyline ready to go, and you can move forward with that.
Of course.
There is no reason in the world that we should be angry about a draw between wrestlers. 2 years ago, we would have never have guessed would have been in the same ring at the same time unless this is an alternate universe.
And also, before AEW, when's the last time we saw a draw on American television? The WWF, maybe?
Maybe. I was going to say, I don't even think WWE knows what a draw is.
Memphis Wrestling?
Yeah, I was going to say they're DQ or it's the quick distraction.
Maybe it was on my
finish.
grandparents because they got Channel 46 and my parents didn't, and there used to be Jerry Lawler on there when I was 7 years old or whatever.
But even then,
they didn't do it.
But the draw,
WCW would do television title draws sometimes.
But
yeah.
even just the draw itself.
Zach, do not make me look like a dumbass here, okay?
The draw itself isn't a bad.
30 years ago.
The draw itself isn't a bad booking move because it extends the storyline without either guy getting hurt. But in this specific scenario, it was about Adam Page being not crowned, but seen as a legitimate, strong champion. He went 60 minutes with Bryan Danielson. What else would
And he just beat a potential wrestler of the year. He just beat one of the greatest of all time, and then he had his first defense against one of the greatest of all time.
So
we just talked about these two guys. They're still two of the greatest to ever do it. Not even right now, not even one promotion, all time great, both of them. And those are the guys he had to beat and defend against immediately.
Okay, so now at that point, I'm not understanding what the problem is. Oh, you shouldn't have what I saw this today. You shouldn't have Page as a champion 0-1. I'm like, damn, it would be worse if he lost. That is what happens in real life combat sports.
Yes.
If you have
draws
two
are
guys,
on the table.
If you got two guys that are equal in talent and stature, sometimes there's not a winner. And that's okay. Am I disappointed in the moment? Yeah. But if it's close enough, and this match was, because they were breaking down, lariats weren't being effective, kicks weren't being effective at a certain point, that's the not the demise, but the decline of just being able to be effective. That's the effect of a 60-minute match.
Plus,
go ahead.
I mean, the punches and the kicks weren't effective, and this goes back to the commentary team. They weren't effective because Daniel Bryan had been working that leg. Daniel Bryan had been working that arm.
Yep.
It was a perfectly told story.
When Bryan Danielson kicked the ring post,
yes,
that's the excuse where now his offense is not going as high.
And I was disappointed in the moment a little bit too. Yeah, because I want to see the 1, 2, 3.
I wanted to see a winner.
Yes, of course you want to see a 1, 2, 3, that's okay. I can live with it because I can live with a little bit of disappointment for the greater good.
Yeah, in the long-term story, a year from now, when it comes to pass, now that's the payoff versus right now where there is that initial disappointment because we didn't see a winner. There's nothing wrong with that, man. I mean, like I said, I sent that tweet out because that's just the way I feel. I don't necessarily need to see a winner or loser in matches as long as the finish makes sense. That made sense.
Yeah, man. I mean, it was good. It was very good.
Yeah, it was
so good that the rest of the show was also good, and
it felt like meh.
Well, I mean, let's talk about the rest of the show. So Young Bucks, Adam Cole, and Bobby Fish cut a promo. That's going to be a 5-on-5 match at on Rampage, which is fine. Wardlow squashes Seidel.
Dude. The power bombs looked a little stiff.
Seidel can take it. And then, did Wardlow show up at the end of the show when MJF needed it?
No.
Because he was out getting the champagne, I'm guessing?
Yes.
I guess we could use that as an excuse.
But I mean, come on. I mean, it was like an hour. Have you ever left to go? Have you ever left to go to the grocery store, smoked a cigarette on the way there?
Baby, I forgot my wallet.
And then you're stuck at the grocery store too long.
I forgot my wallet,
It's not
boss.
necessarily Wardlow's fault.
I forgot my wallet, boss. They were carding. I don't have my credit cards. Shit like that. Don't get me wrong. I was really looking for Wardlow to come out and maybe somehow he and Leo Rush cross paths, and then that's how Dante Martin gets the ring. Because I honestly think, well, I shouldn't say think. I thought that Dante Martin was going to win this match because it was, at this point, it's the diamond ring feels beneath MJF at this point. It's either world championship or bust. I mean, there's no reason for him to kind of come back down to the mid card a little bit. I mean, if you wanted to put Dante Martin over, this might have been the way to do it. I'm not mad about it. It's just, I felt like this was the opportunity to kind of pass the mic to the right a little bit.
All right, we'll come back to Serena Deeb and Sheeta. MJF Dante Martin, it was not my favorite Dante Martin match. I'm a Dante Martin fan, and I'm a supporter of him.
He didn't like this?
Nah, I think that he needs to come up with some facial expressions that are a little bit more than just dumbfounded. You know, I know he's 20, and I know they're all dumbfounded, like they're stupid as shit.
I was going to say, dude, clearly you don't remember yourself at 20.
Oh, man, I was dumber than shit, I promise. The other thing, though, his punches are just terrible. Like, punches seem to be so easy, and not everybody needs to be the Undertaker. My wife just handed me the baby. Edna May, what do you think about Dante Martin's punches? She didn't say anything.
I was ready to say, this is where we need the visual media. She's like, who? Who's this bum?
Dante Martin's punches could use a little bit. Baby, close that glass door in case Jason's smoking. Close the glass door. You can close the screen door, too. Yeah, that one. There you go. Great job.
The look on her face was classic.
I thought that Dante, you know, not everybody needs to be the Undertaker, like I said, but his punches just looked really bad. Same thing with Miz this week, too. Go ahead, Zach.
Yeah, I was actually, you know, he's green, and that's fine. Like, he's young, he's learning. But he was not missing spots, but his timing was off quite a bit, and especially on the shooting star and the 450 and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's like his main bread and butter is being this dynamic flippy guy, and whenever you miss your flip, like that shooting star springboard off the top rope, like he like barely touched him, and MJF's just out there trying to save it.
God, he almost killed himself in that one.
Yeah.
On the 450 outside, he almost killed himself. MJF did everything he could to catch him.
Yeah, I'm going to say
everything he could.
And that's, you know, I know people just hate MJF, but I mean, in that scenario, as a professional, okay, that's one of the biggest gripes that, you know, AEW gets outside, you know, like true professional wrestlers, is on spots where guys are flying outside the ring. Guys aren't there to you know, to catch the fall or whatever. You know, it's just kind of like, you know, if you hit me, you hit me. You don't, you don't. MJF really sold out for that, and there's got to be kudos in that scenario. I didn't necessarily think this was a bad match, but I mean, it wasn't, you know, 5-star. It was somewhere in the gray. It basically told the story that once again, MJF is somehow, some way is going to get this thing done. He said he was going. He's like the AEW version of Jay White. What I say is going to ultimately happen.
Well, here's the thing. MJF, his stature is big in AEW. He's not necessarily a ring general, though. Like, and when he's going to be wrestling, he's 25 or 26 or whatever. When he's going to be wrestling a 20-year-old who is green as shit. Sorry for the language, Ed May. But when he's green as shit, then the match can suffer, and I thought that this match suffered.
That honestly makes total sense, because in scenarios where you have someone as young as Dante Martin, you need someone.
Now the dude's 20, you know, and he did better than most 20-year-olds will be able to do.
Most 20-year-olds wouldn't be on that stage.
Exactly, and he's main eventing a huge AEW show. I know it's not the biggest match in the show, but he's the main event.
He's still the main event. It still has stakes on it. I mean, he's still got to come out and perform.
I'll tell you what, he can do a shooting star press, but I can still buy Anna Jay a drink.
See,
he's right about that. He's right about that. Also, you think Dante Martin's ever gone down on somebody? Zach has. Jason's trying to spit out his beer. Oh, I almost killed him. I can't do that to him. He's getting too old for that shit, man. I can't do that to him anymore.
My health insurance don't kick in until next year, man. Come on, January 1. Until that point, you got to keep me alive.
All right, no more jokes. No more jokes.
Oh, I thought that's whenever your Medicare kicks in.
He's heating up.
You know what? When you get to be my age and you ain't too far behind me, you gonna wish you looked as good as I do.
Oh my God! I gotta say that
Motherfuckers, fuck both you guys.
That could be the best joke that Zach's ever told on this podcast, man.
No, just because he tells the joke on me, the old joke.
No, it's the
Medicare
thing. I work in retirement. I talk a lot about Medicare all day, and that's a funny joke.
Dude, I'm 48. I'm not close to retiring yet. God damn.
We talk too much about AEW and not enough about AARP.
It's killing it. All right. Now,
Serena Deeb and Sheeta
yep.
just completely worked their asses off. Sheeta was very physical in this match. Deeb is a great technical wrestler. I like them both. They're probably my two favorite in-ring wrestlers in AEW in the women's division.
I agree. Mine too.
They're awesome. And and it just suffered a bit because the fans were so into the championship match for 60 full minutes.
Yeah, how do you follow it?
It's tough.
I'll say this though too, because a lot of people are like, "Why didn't you put that Daniel Bryan match on last?" It's like, well, if it starts at 8:00, then you know it's going to go 60 minutes.
Duh.
So
I shouldn't say duh, but
it makes sense. But like you were saying, Zach, yes, it's an impossible act to follow.
I thought the match was still good, though. Don't get me wrong. I mean, if you would have took this match, literally just take it out of the card itself for Wednesday, and you just showed me this match. This match was good. Okay, Sheeta coming out throwing the kendo stick off the top before she got in the ring just showed you the heat that they already had. You know what I'm saying? They have two really good matches. I thought this was a third pretty good match. Like I said, it probably just suffered for the fact that it came behind that instant classic. But I thought in this scenario, it told the story. Sheeta finally, goes over Serena Deeb. And I agree with you guys. I think Serena Deeb is probably the Zack Sabre Jr. of the women's division, easily the best technical wrestler of the bunch. And at some point, whoever wins this TBS championship is probably, if it's going to be a babyface, I wouldn't be surprised to see Serena Deeb in that spot, being the first challenger to whoever it is. Even if it's, let's just say it's Nyla Rose, I won't say God forbid, but if it's Nyla Rose, I can easily see Serena Deeb winning this bad boy. If it's Ruby Soho, that's an easy way to, get her an immediate title challenger for the TBS championship. So, I mean, Serena Deeb ain't going nowhere. And, the more Serena Deeb I have, the better my life is.
Oh, yeah, she's bad.
Oh, no, she's a bad motherfucker.
Yeah.
Don't get it twisted.
Anything else to say about this? Oh, Edna May.
I think the only other thing was a lot of people were expecting some debut, and just because we had a big Sting debut, and there's been a lot of stuff, and I think it's pretty obvious we're going to have Brody King joining Malachi Black, which is cool because they're the PWG Tag Team Champions.
Okay, I was going to say, I guess that's where I missed because he's like, now you're more than the king, and I had to rewind it 3 times. I'm like, okay, who's he talking about? Who's he talking about? I couldn't think of it.
Well, Jerry Lawler just re-signed with WWE, so it's
okay.
See,
I didn't. Well, look, Jerry Lawler re-signed, and that's not necessarily the king I'm really talking about. But somebody ended up showing me the tweet about him signing with AEW, and then now that makes sense. Okay, ultimately, I guess this is where I wouldn't say my problem is, but I need to see this moving forward. If this is the House of Black is going to be the next faction they're going to put together, whatever this faction is needs to stay together, be cohesive, and start kind of running havoc across the fucking landscape of AEW. If that means Pac comes in and he's like the unwilling servant, so be it. If Julia Hart is like their little mascot or whatever, like she is with Varsity Blondes, Griff Garrison is getting ready to get that work next week.
I want to see Julia Hart. I want to see Julia Hart get black.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. I mean,
that's a porn joke.
Never mind, you ain't shit. I want to see progression. I don't want to see like it's the pinnacle. I get my hopes up, and then next thing you know, they're all kind of doing different things, and they're not doing things together as a faction to get the faction over. The inner circle is is probably the only faction that I can think of off the top of my head, Dark Circle or Dark Order included, is the only faction I could think of being the Inner Circle that has gotten themselves over as a faction. Dark Order may be over, but I don't think they've gotten themselves over as a faction. Individual guys, John Silver got his ass over. Evil Uno and Stu Grayson was over for a little bit until they stopped making them as a tag team. I need to see the House of Black, if this is going to be a thing, make it a thing. 2022, in some form or fashion, they need to be, running roughshod over this fucking AEW landscape, whether you go back to the Nightmare Family or not, or something else. I need to see Brody King, Aleister Black, or Malachi Black, and whomever else they, throw into that mix, dominate in 2022.
Yeah, and then the other thing was, the lights go off, and it's Sting and Darby Allin. I think a lot of folks were expecting,
The Briscoes.
Briscoes or somebody like that. But this is a fun match, Sting, Darby Allin, and CM Punk versus the Pinnacle, MJF and FTR. So that's a fun match, 6-man tag next week. That's something to look forward to quite a bit. And we'll see how that goes. That's whenever maybe we'll see the Briscoes show up. Maybe they'll come out of there, because I think that's definitely happening, considering FTR was on Final Battle. I don't see why that would happen if this match wasn't going to happen. And of course, the logical place for it to happen is AEW. So, not saying Briscoes are going to sign with AEW or become all elite, but there's plenty of times where AEW has brought in outside free agents to wrestle. So
for sure, and I agree with you. When the lights went out, I'm like, okay, I'm waiting to hear, some gunshots, them boys, I'm waiting to see this. Darby and Sting was just a disappointment because I expected one thing and I got something else. It was kind of like what I was saying at the start of this 2 count, or maybe in the 1 count. If you're looking for WWE and AEW, you're going to be disappointed. I was looking for the Briscoes right here because I was like, oh, man, they clowned at the at Final Battle or whatever, and I really wanted to see that kind of bleed over to Wednesday night. That maybe Kyle O'Reilly, I think there was a little tease about Kyle O'Reilly this week. If he doesn't show up, that's okay, too. I mean, I'm not necessarily married for him to come over to AEW. In this case, I was looking for the Briscoes, didn't get it. Sting and Darby, it makes sense after FTR jumped him in the back on Rampage on Friday night. So at that point, you connect the dots. It might not be the dots I want to see, but they made it to where now you have this 6-man match next week. Obviously, MJF and Punk have their thing going. FTR and Darby and Sting have their thing going now. You make it a 6-man tag. I'm just glad they didn't do it the WWE way, where, the 6-man tag happens on the same fucking card. Let this shit breathe, give us a week, and then do it at a later point. Outside of that, I mean...
Dude, I swear, if Winter is Coming would have been like a WWE show, they would have started that title match, and then 2 people would have interrupted the title match, and they'd have turned it into a tag match, and then the other 2 people would have interrupted that tag match, they'd have turned it into a 6-man.
No, man, come on. Okay, see, this is where you wrong. A part of you is right, but I mean, B, if this was like Big E and Lashley, okay, it's just the 2 guys I came up with because it's the 2 guys that came up in my head. Even then, the B, title, world title, even then, I think they would give them their latitude to go ahead and have this match. The reason why they do, the silly shit they do is I don't really think they think that far ahead. It's show after show, week after week, versus
Cedric Alexander would have come down, and then Xavier, and then
stop.
It would have been Kofi, and then been New Day versus Hurt Business. and then, guess what? Hurt Business sure as shit wouldn't have been on TV for the next 7 weeks.
Would you say this is your one chance to get it right and get yourselves over? Outside of that, I don't know what to tell you. And once again, this is why I hate WWE sometimes. We continue to forget that Cedric Alexander had one of the greatest matches in his life on WWE television versus Kota Ibushi in the Cruiserweight Classic.
Still never seen that match.
What the freak are you saying? Jesus Christ.
Did you say what the freak?
Yeah.
He did. That was funny.
Did you? Okay. Sorry, I had to.
Yeah, I know.
My breastfeeding wife spilt her glass of red wine, so that's what's going on over here. So are we done with AEW?
We're just
essentially,
finishing
yeah.
up, so yeah,
All right.
we can be done.
Actually, I did have one more question about AEW, and we can make this as quick as possible. Which for Zach is 30 seconds, for Jason, which is about 5 minutes.
Just tell me yes or no. Make me do something.
Is it a good thing that AEW has this habit of putting the biggest match on the TV card first? Because it definitely is a different way of doing it. Rampage had Lucha Bros versus FTR as the opener, and Adam Cole versus Wheeler Utah as the quote-unquote main event. We talked about Bryan Danielson versus Page, and then they ended up with MJF and Dante Martin, which we talked about. It's a 60-minute match. It would have given it away. Is this a good thing?
Tupi, I'll let you go first.
I think it's just situational. I think it's totally fine to do it whenever, it's a situational in the sense of time limit. Like you said, it would have been too obvious to do that match last, or where you end up, too rushed and TV time remaining is just not enough to do the match. So you just put it on first, and I think that's fine. Or if it's just a super hot match that everybody wants to see, because I don't know what the second hour looks like on the first hour for AEW ratings wise. I haven't really looked at that, but like the third hour of Raw is always worse than the second hour of Raw, which is always worse than like the first hour of Raw. So I think just the longer that you get in to the show, the more it has a tendency to drop off. And also, if you have long matches, historically in AEW, they have the longer the match goes, the more the audience grows. It actually doesn't drop off. So that's interesting. So I think it's just situational, and I think it's totally fine. I like just the situational aspect of it, not having a 100% playbook of this is how we do it all the time, but just be like, hey, let's try it this way, because I feel like this might work out better. I think that's cool.
JCB, what do you think?
One of my biggest problems, I guess, with title matches, especially as the main event, is when, like Two Beer said, or it's a 60-minute match or it's TV time remaining. I don't want to hear that shit. Okay, title matches are supposed to be 60 minutes, so at least let me suspend my belief that this could possibly go 60 minutes. In this scenario, I don't have a problem with that, because this is the match that they highlighted. This is the match I want to see. I want them to have the most time humanly possible to make this shit, entertaining as possible. They went with it first. That's fine. Lucha Brothers versus FTR first. That's fine too. I don't have a problem with them not having a formula, because WWE has a formula. You know how kind of things go. AEW right now has us on our toes. When I watched last night, I was like, oh, we're opening with this? And immediately you had me glued. I wasn't going anywhere.
That's why.
That's where I think they're doing it in certain situations.
That's why I think it's a good thing, because I think that the main event being, now I'm sure there are wrestling historians out there that would say that I'm completely wrong about this, but I think that having the biggest match being last is an antiquated thing that only occurred when there was no television, because you wanted people to stick around for the biggest match. Now, when you have shit that's on television, if you want to grab the viewer's attention, you're gonna start off with the biggest thing possible, right? You know, Pulp Fiction starts off with them robbing the fucking restaurant, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's like you're
getting ready to go on a ride.
You know, there was when I was an English major a million years ago at Mizzou, I had a writing teacher that said the two most important things are the beginning of your story and the ending of your story. You know, it's like you want to grab people's attention. And if you want to grab people's attention, especially on TV, now listen, if you have Lucha Brothers versus FTR, and then you tell me Adam Cole and Wheeler Yuta are going to come along later, I'm going to stick around for it, probably. But if I don't, I'm probably DVRing it anyway. You know what I mean? But grab people's attention, especially because they're not trying to grab my attention.
I'm here regardless. They're
trying to grab the 15-year-old that's just flicking around, you know, who doesn't quite know what wrestling is, you know, or the 45-year-old that used to watch wrestling and it's like,
and I know who Daniel Bryan was, but now he's in AEW. I haven't seen him.
Or you want to watch Lucha Brothers, who are these fucking insane luchadors that are doing the crazy shit that you used to never see back in whatever, you know.
Phoenix walking the ropes is I can watch that on the loop. It's amazing that he just doesn't bite it.
I don't want you to think that I asked this question just so I could say my piece on it, but I do think that it is interesting that they open up. I mean, AEW Dynamite does not mind opening up with the biggest match, and I think it's kind of ballsy, and I think it's kind of innovative, actually.
It's ballsy in the sense because, like we all three of us kind of said, the second half of Dynamite felt a little down, but it's so hard unless you're coming with another fucking instant classic, which would be almost impossible to do. Anything that would follow Bryan Danielson versus Hangman Page was going to be a slight disappointment, of course, because of how much people invested in that first hour. It's not a knock against anybody else. It's a ballsy way to do it. It's like you said, it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. You put it up first, everything behind it sucks. Not sucks, but just, falls a little flat.
I'm just glad we all agree.
The back end is, if you put it at 8 o'clock and you know that's the only match left, you know how long it's going to go.
Let's get to that 3 count.
1, 2, 3.
Okay. The 3 count is SmackDown. And I only say this because
I'm curious to where you're going to go with this. Go ahead.
The first segment of SmackDown, which was, and I'll admit, so I wasn't on the show last week. I said I listened to the whole show. I listened to about half of it. I don't know if you guys got to this, but the Brock Lesnar, Sami Zayn, Paul Heyman segment at the beginning of SmackDown, to me, is pro wrestling. That is sports entertainment, maybe, at its finest. Like, that was fucking funny. Sami Zayn and Brock Lesnar have this very strange chemistry that really works for me. Zach, do you agree that they have this really good chemistry?
I haven't seen any of it.
Okay, that's what I was going to say. You might want to preface that by saying, did you watch it first? And then secondly, ask the question.
Sami Zayn comes out in a wheelchair with 2 very buff male nurses. Like, they're obviously taking bumps later, right?
Right.
And Sami Zayn starts talking about how he got his ass beat by Roman Reigns the week before. And then he's in the wheelchair. Paul Heyman starts coming out. And Sami Zayn, who's acting like he can't turn his head, goes, "Who's that? Who's that?" Which made me laugh really hard. And because Sami Zayn was talking about suing everybody from the ring announcer to the referee to the guy who's working the bell. And then Paul Heyman says to Sami Zayn, he goes, "That's what my people do. My people are litigious. My people are the ones that run Hollywood." And I was like, holy shit. Because Sami Zayn's a Muslim, like a straight up Muslim. His parents were from Iran. His parents grew up in Iran. And Paul Heyman's a Jew. And I was like, he's making Jew jokes straight up to this Muslim guy. I was fucking laughing so hard.
Paul Heyman could do that. Most other motherfuckers can't do that.
And then Sami Zayn stands out of the wheelchair, and Pat McAfee starts screaming, he can stand, he can walk, he can walk. The whole thing was so comedy to me. It was, to quote Jason Bell, it was Comedy Central.
Dude, it was pretty fucking funny.
I was laughing so hard. And he backed down Paul Heyman. He said, I know Roman Reigns isn't here this week. There's nobody here to save you.
Okay, stop right there. I was like, wait a minute. The Usos ain't here, motherfucker. We just saw this shit. That was just me at the point. Go ahead.
Brock Lesnar's music hits. Brock Lesnar comes down. He pulls up a chair, grabs a folding chair from the side, sits next to Sami Zayn. I feel like I'm just explaining this to Zach now, but it's so good. He tells Sami Zayn, he goes, listen, he's like, I think we got off on the wrong foot. Sami goes, you think so? He goes, we're both Canadian, right?
Canadian alpha males.
Sammy looks him dead in the eye and says, Canadian alpha males. It's the fucking funniest I've ever seen in my life. And then Paul Heyman starts doing the reigning, defending thing, and Brock gets all worked up.
He's like, what the fuck is this?
Brock starts fucking everybody up, and then he gives Sammy the F5, dude. It was one of the best segments it's one of the funniest segments I've ever seen in my life, dude. Brock Lesnar, as a babyface, was perfect in that thing. Sami Zayn was perfect. Paul Heyman was perfect. It was as spectacular. I mean, seriously, an A+ segment. Sami Zayn and Brock Lesnar need to do a movie together, like fucking 48 Hours or something. I don't know, fucking Lethal Weapon, whatever, dude. They were so funny. Brock Lesnar, who knew Brock Lesnar had those chops?
I didn't.
He was spectacular.
He was really good.
He was like, "Come on, let's go to Saskatchewan."
He goes moose hunting.
He goes, "You're from Canada, right?" And he goes, "Yeah, Montreal." And no, he goes, "Where are you from in Canada?" Sammy goes, "Everybody knows I'm from Montreal." He like looks back at the nurses. And then Lesnar speaks French. All I know is that there needs to be more Sami Zayn, Brock Lesnar material on SmackDown. Those guys have chemistry.
I can't disagree. I'll just say this. For the sake of big picture, the one thing I took away from is that Paul Heyman still knows how to push the Brock Lesnar button whenever he needs to.
That was the funny. It was like
the angle moving forward.
Yeah, it was like a Terminator thing. It's like he like flipped it and
he's like, what's this?
Brock Lesnar just starts fucking everybody up.
No, it's kind of like, I can't remember what he said, but it was like, it was the reference you said at the beginning of the show. It's like a buddy cop movie, and now he's like, this isn't the Brock Lesnar I know. The Brock Lesnar I know would have, destroyed these motherfuckers within seconds, and then he runs down,
He's
the
like,
reign
you
defending.
should be the new reigning.
And then it was just like, boom, he turns it on. He those poor nurses. I mean, they didn't even get through the ropes. One guy was like getting hung on the ropes, getting thrown through it. I was like, oh, Jesus. Are you okay?
I loved it to death.
It was a good segment.
Zach didn't watch it, so...
Go back and watch it. It's something to eat an edible. Don't get too fucked up beforehand. Eat an edible, watch the segment, and then you can pass out.
I guess I just wanted to talk about how much I liked it.
No, it was good. It was really fucking good. And more so, like you said, the fact that Brock Lesnar acting as the babyface is kind of the appeal where you got Paul Heyman in the middle. Roman will be back next week. That'll be its own thing.
Damn.
It'll be it's a nice build to day one.
I don't want to pump it up too much, but it was really good.
It was fucking comedy. It was fucking comedy.
It was really good.
I'm like, what the fuck?
All right, so let's move on to some other stuff. So Raw, we'll hang on the main roster stuff. Raw has Lashley go through KO, who tapped out before the Hurt Lock got put on him,
He's
which
like, nigga.
I really like. I mean, that's just smart. That's smart heel move.
Look, I'm waiting for day one. I'll tap out right now.
Lashley beats Seth Rollins by DQ. He beats Big E by heel moves. He beats all three in one night. So now we have a fatal four-way on day one, or at the day one pay-per-view. Lashley, KO, Seth Rollins, Big E. Jason, what do you think about Lashley getting added to this?
It's kind of like when Bryan, oh shit, now I'm fucking it up. Daniel Bryan got added to Reigns versus Edge. There was a lot of people that had a problem with that. I didn't have a problem with that because it made the match better. Adding Lashley to this triple threat can only make this match better. How we got there is the problem. Lashley is a heel. You can't have the heel run the gauntlet to get to the match. That makes no fucking sense. Baby faces have to overcome to get to that match.
You know, I was hoping that we weren't going to agree on this, and we're not. You're completely fucking wrong. Zach, what do you think about it?
I mean, like, it's fine. I mean, I think the difference between 3 and 4 is negligible compared to the difference between, like, 2 and 3. Like, it's a less polarizing prospect to add an additional member to an already multi-man match. So, whatever.
Do you think that Lashley belongs in this match?
I mean, yeah, I mean, he's a top guy. Like, he's still presented like a top guy. They, from what I can gather, like, from what I've, heard about, and as I haven't been watching, they seem to kind of, except for actually I did watch the last pay-per-view, he kind of came off like a babyface. Like, they're kind of like flip-flopping him without actually turning him. Like, they had like a babyface video package for him at like Survivor Series. It was weird.
They did the same thing with Shayna Baszler. Okay, well, does that make her a babyface?
No, I'm not saying he is. I'm just saying it's weird. But yeah, I mean, he's a top guy. Like, it's totally fine. Like, to put him in there.
Jason has been grinding his teeth at me ever since I told him he was wrong, and I let Zach talk. So, Zach, do you have any more thoughts about this?
I'm not been grinding my teeth. I just think you're wrong. That's all.
All right, Jason, tell me why I'm wrong.
The fundamental problem with this is how we build to the match. Drew McIntyre having to run through whomever it is to get to a certain point, it makes sense. He's a babyface. This is a babyface booking for a heel. Somehow, if you wanted to add Bobby Lashley to this match, that's okay. But the way they did it makes no sense.
Yeah, but if they just would have added him, you'd be pissed off that they just added him.
No, you make him earn it, but
so
he has
how?
to
By beating Big E?
this way.
Because that's stupid too.
Okay. This way doesn't make sense.
What way would make sense?
He would have to
fancy book it for me, please.
He would have to beat a big-time babyface on the Raw roster that's not named Big E.
So he'd have to beat, like, if you can beat Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston in one night, then you can face Big E.
Because at least now it has New Day ties to it. You're beating baby faces versus him being a one-time baby face for this show.
I see what you're saying in terms of it is a baby face move to, like, move all the way up. Like, oh, fight this guy. You know, it's like the 3 layers of hell or nine rings of hell or whatever.
MJF
Dante
versus
was.
Jericho.
I've been to Florence. I know who Dante is. But Lashley, I feel like this version of Lashley is the version of Lashley that Vince thought that he was going to be when it was the Battle of the Billionaires back in 2005. I feel like Lashley has been presented very well in this current incarnation. I feel like MVP is the perfect fucking manager for him. I'm with you. I thought Hurt Business was his perfect fucking heaters, even though they've gotten away from it. I don't know why they've gotten away from it, and it doesn't make any sense to me, but they were the perfect fucking heaters for him. I like Lashley in this ultimately because I think that Lashley should win this match, and I think that Big E should chase him to WrestleMania, and Big E needs to take it back from Lashley. Big E Lashley, to me, needs to headline one of the nights of WrestleMania. That's what I think.
Hot take.
If we're not gonna get Lashley Lesnar, which is what everybody wants, but obviously
I don't think we're getting at that point.
Obviously, Vince doesn't want it for whatever reason. he probably. I mean, he does like keeping black guys together. He really does.
Well, I was about to say, why ain't he seen her business?
He likes keeping them in the chicken coop.
Sweating because they took too much PCP. But go ahead.
But I really do think that Big E versus Lashley in like some kind of blood feud at WrestleMania, and if Lashley takes it from Big E at day one, which for those of you that don't know is the name of the pay-per-view, I think that Big E winning from Lashley at WrestleMania, I think that's the move. And I like Lashley being here, and I'm a KO dude, I'm a Seth Rollins guy too. I like all four of these guys quite a bit, to be honest. Especially Lashley in his current incarnation. Agreed. I think he's fucking great. I want to see Big E versus Lashley at WrestleMania. And it's time to start thinking about WrestleMania, you know?
Yeah, quiet as it's kept. I can't say I totally disagree with you on that. I'll just say this. I wish it would almost... A part of me wishes that Lashley would just get the winner. That way you can extend it a little more and not have all four guys in one spot. Don't get me wrong. I expect this match to be great. But if you want to go to Big E and Lashley, that might be a way to get to Big E Lashley a little easier. Have Lashley meet the winner. Lashley beats Big E. Then you can get the obvious rematch.
This match has the potential to be great as far as WWE matches go.
Yes,
like
very
those
much so.
Those four guys.
It's
Zach, what do you think?
It's a fatal four-way, so there's no rules.
Yeah, I mean, there was a match like not too long ago. I mean, I guess it was a while ago, but I remember like Braun Strowman got added to like a three-way, and I was like, what the hell? And then it was like, it just made the match like so much better. I'm fine as far as WWE goes. The storyline never makes sense, right? The storytelling never makes sense. So like, I'm done getting bent out of shape or even like trying to like debate it.
You can just
Good
say,
for you.
You can just say I'm right, Dad, and we can move along.
No, that's progress.
Oh well, yeah, you're right. You're right about that. But yeah, I'm just saying, like, just give me the best match that you can book. Just give me the best match you can book. I don't care how you got there.
You heard your boy.
Don't care either.
You heard your boy, right?
Did he agree with you?
Yeah.
Say my boy, man. He's my fucking in-law. I don't even know the
dude. You're not excommunicated.
Sorry, Zach. Go ahead.
Right.
Oh, no, that's what I'm saying. Like, they don't care how they get there, so I don't care how they get there. Just give me the best match you can give me.
That's ultimately, I guess, the biggest thing is that this match has to kind of, pay it off. You can't just throw out the bullshit red carpet. You got to have the nice red carpet, throw it out. This is the first pay-per-view of the new year.
What do you think the chances are, Zach, of Big E walking out of day one with the belt?
You better not ask me.
I mean, I think they're good. I think Big E has it till WrestleMania. That's what I assumed. I don't think there's any reason to take it off of him, especially because, you're not necessarily worried about drawing money or anything. Like,
okay, so who takes it off in WrestleMania? Are we working towards a New Day triple threat at WrestleMania?
I don't know, man. I still think Damian Priest wins the Royal Rumble, and I can see Damian Priest taking it off of him.
Hot take part 2.
Yeah, that is a hot take because I haven't even thought of that. Have you said that on the podcast? Because
no.
I usually don't listen to you.
Yeah, I think I had an early prediction. I don't know if I said it on the podcast. I know I put it on Friends of BFR. My early prediction for Royal Rumble, it was like I put it on there 3 months ago, and I put pictures of Damian Priest and Rhea Ripley. I do not have the same hopes for Rhea Ripley, but Damian Priest does not lose on the main roster, and he's the United States champion, and he very much reminds me of what Bobby Lashley looked like, a year and a half ago. Before his title run. He didn't ever lose singles competition. He was the United States champion. He was always booked strong, and I think that he's gonna win the Rumble and he's gonna challenge for the belt and maybe take it. It ain't gonna be Roman. It's going to be.
I could say that would be the most disappointing Royal Rumble winner I've ever seen.
Wow. Okay.
I don't know.
Computer's right there. We can drag that up if we really wanted to.
I mean, besides like Cena.
That's what I was going to say. There's guys that have won it.
I'm just saying new guys. Like, the Damian Priest to me is, like, he's good, but he's mid-card. He's just very mid-card to me. Like, he just doesn't seem like a world champion to me.
Okay, but there's 2 world titles, and this world title, the one that Big E has, feels like that's the mid-card world title.
Ooh, not to me. No, that's not the way I feel about it at all.
Look.
I'm a fan of belts, though. More belts, the better.
I'm just saying.
I'm a fan belt.
I'll just say this.
I need to be replaced in my Subaru.
That's why you're talking fan belts.
That's
like,
so stupid.
That motherfucker's go here
That's
costing me
such a
money.
stupid fucking joke. I'm sorry.
I'll just say this. With Roman,
Sorry, I was
they
reading
put,
a text message. I didn't even hear it.
with Roman, they put a lot of effort into it. With Big E, it's not always a lot of effort. It's some. So that's why I don't necessarily have a hard stance with Damian Priest being in where Big E is.
Okay.
Could it happen? Yeah. Will it? I don't think so. Question mark. It could because it's WWE.
Who else do you guys? I mean, if that's disappointing, I'm not saying it's awesome, but it seems possible.
No, I'm
early predictions. I mean, it's less than a month away, right? Or a month away.
Yeah, give or take. The problem with this is that I don't. They haven't done enough for me personally to where I see Damian Priest at that next level. But Drew McIntyre was in that same spot. They made Drew McIntyre a top star, so maybe they can do it.
I could see Riddle winning.
Riddle makes a lot of fucking sense.
That's kind of my early prediction. But I mean, I know that we're probably looking at a Riddle Orton WrestleMania match, which makes sense. You're right.
Asuka is my early prediction to win the Rumble.
I can't see anybody else.
Yeah, I don't. It's funny because as far as I see Riddle as the top guy, and I know that we do, but I don't think Vince does.
No, I don't. I kind of disagree with that. I mean, don't get me wrong. The fact that Riddle and Randy Orton are in a tag team isn't necessarily a positive reinforcement for his singles career, but more times than not, especially on Raw, he has time with the mic. He has good long matches in the ring. So I mean, there's something that Vince likes about Riddle. If for whatever reason, when Riddle was a part of the Me Too movement, if Vince didn't like him then, he would have gotten rid of him then. Clearly he didn't, and now it's kind of paid off for him because RK Bro is one of the top acts in WWE and all of WWE. I mean, SmackDown, Raw included. Can he win the Rumble? Of course he can win the Rumble. I'm just not sure that that's the trigger you pull because ultimately I think the bigger match, which is kind of crazy for me to even say this, the bigger match would be Randy Orton versus Matt Riddle at WrestleMania because now fans are so invested.
What I really like,
I think that's the way they're going to end up going.
But I really like is you said that Matt Riddle was part of the Me Too movement. Like Me Too movement was like a clique. You're like, yeah, he was part of the Me Too. Like that was
chatting with them and all.
You're right. I mean, listen, I don't hate Damian Priest, and he might win the Rumble. That would just be disappointing to me as a guy who likes somebody new to win the Rumble. There are other guys. What?
Say that sentence again.
I want somebody to win the Rumble that is a new winner. That is somebody.
So that would be Damian Priest.
Yeah, I know, but that would be the most disappointing new winner that I can think of. I'd rather have it be fucking Chad Gable. So would you.
Look, as much
I'd rather have it be LA Knight. Okay, so would you. I'd rather it be Cameron Grimes.
Okay, stop.
I'd rather.
So you ready to open up a whole nother can of worms with this
Sami
NXT
Zayn.
shit.
What the fuck?
Sami Zayn, I think we can agree. No, look, okay.
Who do you say?
Braun Breaker.
For sure. Fuck yeah. I'd rather.
Dude, he's getting ready to take the title off of Ciampa. Okay, we all know
I'd rather
this.
it be Ciampa. I'd rather be Johnny Gargano. Who, by the way, I don't know if you guys talked about it last week.
Of course we did, Doug.
He ain't going to AEW. He's going to SmackDown.
2 beer?
I know he just did his first Twitch stream, and he said he's going to take time off, which, he's going to have a baby and stuff, but he did say he would like to wrestle Kenny Omega, but then again, why would you not say that? Like, if you're a wrestler, of course you want to wrestle Kenny
I'll say
Omega.
this. Paternity leave is for pussies. All right.
I'll say this.
That's good.
Johnny Gargano needs to look at what Kevin Owens did and then make that best decision.
That's going to do it for our 3.
He ain't Kevin Owens, though. At least in Vince's eyes.
Okay.
1, 2, 3.
All right. You guys got some New Japan to talk about?
I guess I'm the only one that actually watched this nonsense, but obviously World Tag League and Best of the Super Juniors finished on early Wednesday morning. Chaos, shouldn't say chaos, but Goto and Yoshihashi defeated, thank God, Evil and Yujiro Takahashi to win the World Tag League on the Best of the Super Junior side. Quiet as
Talk
it
about
kept.
a terrible week final, by the way. That's one reason I didn't watch it. Like, I was looking forward to Hiromu versus Yo, but dude, color me uninterested when it came to that final.
Look, I can't say I disagreed, and we kind of talked about this last week where I was worried that LIJ got to that hot start and then kind of folded towards the end. Once that kind of happened, and then Chaos beats Dangerous Techers, it was just like, okay, this is the final. All right, I can understand why people, at least myself personally,
So who won?
Out. On the World Tag League, Yoshihashi and Goto won. Best of Super Juniors, obviously, we had Yo versus, Hiromu, and then it was a 35-minute match. I think it was the longest match of the final. Don't quote me on that, but obviously Hiromu wins. So immediately Hiromu challenges Desperado. So now the first match, the first night of Wrestle Kingdom is pretty much out. At the top of the card, you're going to have obviously Shingo versus Okada for the title. Hiromu versus Desperado for the junior titles. Then from that point, I believe it's going to be LIJ versus United Kingdom. That would be, I think it's going to be Hanare and Okan, Jeff Cobb, and Naito have a singles match that first night. A lot of things kind of built up for Wrestle Kingdom on that final night. So if you haven't watched it, this is the night to watch to kind of start yourselves up to watch for Wrestle Kingdom matches moving forward.
Zach, did you watch NXT 2.0?
No.
You see me shaking my head before you even said it. No.
Okay. Do you have anything to say about NXT 2.0? I have a few things to say.
I'll let you go first.
Harland is somebody that
The next Brock Lesnar.
Paul Heyman has called the next Brock Lesnar. I didn't see it.
Match one.
No, I saw him wrestle. I just didn't see the Brock Lesnar comparisons. Did you see the guy that he threw down the stairs? Did you see who it was?
Brian Kendrick.
It was the Brian Kendrick.
I
Yes.
apologize.
I did not notice that when it happened.
I didn't notice it was him, but then when he was like backstage laid up and they were like, Brian Kendrick's back, I'm like, what the fuck? So I had to go back and watch it. I mean, they did the best they can do with what they had to work with.
This is the first time I've seen Grayson Waller as a star. I was like, oh, I think this was the right guy that they should have put heat on, sending Johnny Gargano at the door. I was like, this guy's got it.
He has it just because I think it's easy to hate on him. I don't necessarily like his character, but I think ultimately that's what the goal is.
No, but his performance is good.
Like I said it last week. I thought he and Cora Jade were the two standout performances in War Games from NXT. So
I'll
there's
admit,
something to that.
I haven't watched War Games.
There's,
I
War
mean,
Games was better than I expected it to be.
agreed.
I think that we can officially say that when Ciampa's gone, that will be the end of NXT 1.0, right? With Kyle
Roderick Strong. No, Roderick Strong's still there, and he resigned.
Okay, but Roderick Strong has always been kind of minor. He was a minor. I love him. I've always said that
that should be our new drop, mid.
I've always said that I thought that Roderick Strong was probably the best pure worker in NXT, like in terms of just in-ring stuff.
The best of the Undisputed Era for sure.
He's like kind of Chris Benoit. He's got no charisma. But
but that's what they put him with Malcolm Bivens, so it makes sense. It's just
sure.
Now
I think we can finally start closing the mausoleum door though on NXT 1.0. So what I was going to ask you guys, I've been playing this all day. What I was going to ask you guys, and now Zach, I'll let you go first. What's your when you think of NXT 1.0 and you think of all those takeovers, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Because I know mine.
It's Johnny versus Ciampa.
So, like in the match or the turn?
Oh, like just that storyline, like from kind of start to finish, like that. That arc is like the quintessential NXT Black and Gold arc to me.
I completely agree. The moment that I think of, because I was listening to a podcast last week. Obviously, I wasn't on this one last week, but I was listening to one last week. And they were like, I guess that's the end of NXT 1.0. And my immediate thought was when Ciampa put Gargano through that table when he turned on him so late after that Authors of Pain match. That was my first NXT 1.0 thought. And we will miss it because, man, it was great.
To me, the first moment, and I watched pretty much when Neville and he got the title, beat Sami Zayn, and then Sami Zayn beats Neville to get the title. Kevin Owens first came out. That was his debut match. He got a bloody nose, and then he came out afterwards, and he turns on Sami Zayn. That, to me, was the defining moment because it kind of opens up the door for the Nakamura's, the Finn Balor's, everybody else to start coming in, and that's where I thought NXT really became much must-see TV. And at that point, that to me was the Black and Gold brand.
I mean, what did they have? They had the 7-year run? Less than that?
No, I was about to say it was less than that. I mean, that scenario feels like 4, maybe 5 years because of no, we were doing the pod during that NXT run.
Man. Cole Gargano in that 2 out of 3. Whew.
Okay.
We should go back in and watch it right now, man.
That's what I'm saying.
Well, we were in the middle of the NXT do-over, but we lost track. So
No,
we were closer to the end.
No, wrestling started to get caught back up.
Yeah,
and then,
AEW showed up.
and then all of a sudden, now we got...
We were hurting for content.
Right. So now all of a sudden, wrestling decides to open back up again, and now we're talking about shit that, we usually talk about.
We just wanted to keep talking. We just had nothing to talk about. We're like, we'll go back and watch this shit. No, we'll just talk forever.
But it works. You know what I'm saying? Ultimately, it all worked itself out. And it was a good time to look back and watch this shit because there's things that I forget. And there's, like I said, Neville to me is one of those guys I forget how good he was. Sami Zayn, I forget how good he was in NXT. Kevin Owens coming over to NXT. Nakamura, Bobby Roode. That was a good time to at least go back and give people content, give us something to do on a Thursday so now we can come back and, watch it again. Ciampa might be the last real bastion of
what I'm
Black
saying.
and Gold of the NXT brand.
I'll say this. NXT 2.0 is fine. It's just it's not the same thing.
No, it
and
sucks.
so
No, it sucks.
I would like to do an official RIP to NXT 1.0.
Let's do it. Yeah, let's do it.
Maybe sometime when there's a slow week. But there hasn't been a lot of slow weeks lately.
Right.
This is banned from ringside.
Look at you, multitasking.
Oh, I got the
Triple
baby.
multitasking.
Oh, the baby's sitting on my lap.
She's so fucking cute.
She's pretty cute, man.
She's pretty fucking
Gonna keep her around.
You better.
Hospital said we had 6 months to bring her back. We got some birthdays this week.
Excuse me.
Hey.
This is not under the warranty. I'm gonna go ahead and bring this bad boy back.
This is a loaded birthday week.
I was joking.
Tell him.
I was joking, Edna May. I apologize.
Tell him, Edna May.
No.
Edna Guerrero.
I would never. You are here to stay. As long as you stay here.
This is a loaded birthday week. Luke Gallows is 38. Otis is 30. Oni Lorcan is 36. Primo Cologne is 39. I know you forgot about him.
Wait. Go back. Luke Gallows, a.k.a. Brody Lee?
No, Luke Gallows from Gallows and Anderson.
Oh, dude, I'm tripping. Okay. That's that third shot that got me fucked up.
Luke Gallows is 38. Otis is 30. Oni Lorcan is 36. Primo Cologne is 39. Mauro Ranallo, remember him? Did somebody call an Uber?
Okay.
He's 52.
He needs to come back at some point.
Trish Stratus is 45. RVD.
I'm older than Trish Stratus? Jesus Christ.
3 years, bro.
I got a chance.
RVD is 51.
Wow.
Luke Harper,
Okay.
a.k.a. Brody Lee, would have been 42 today.
Dude, seriously?
Yep. And then,
R.I.P. for real.
and then the biggest of all of them, Stone Cold Steve Austin is 57 today.
God bless Stone Cold. That's good. Okay, see that, and that's where once again I love me some Stone Cold, but it ain't always about the mic. Go ahead.
For Jason's weed dealer, for Vice, for
Check,
my
check.
wife Erin,
Check.
for Edna
Edna
Guerrero,
May, baby.
sitting on my lap right now. The Ednator, for Two
Check.
Beer Zach Pullman, for
Check.
Jason Cornelius Bell, for
Check again.
who did I forget? Tender Hall. I
Check.
am Bill Vagey, and everybody else. Boo the heat.